most importantly, renders a profit.
Thank you, Maggie. In coming up with our vision for the property, we spoke with local stakeholders and reviewed the neighborhood plan. This helped us define what the most likely or most fitting uses for the site would be. We explored ways to create a unique attraction that'll help bring attention to the GlobeYard neighborhood. We ultimately recognized an opportunity to create a mixed-use innovation campus that could largely reuse the existing buildings and much of the industrial space. The site has excellent drive-by visibility, but pretty limited and challenging access, which led us to believe that the site really needs to serve as a self-sufficient destination. To address the size and scope of the site, we felt it necessary to divide the project into multiple uses and mindfully connect them throughout the overall development. We researched industries that would benefit from this kind of shared common campus, and two iconic Colorado industries really stood out to us. On the Eastern Plains, you see the food and agriculture industry has been one of the pioneering industries of the state. Then you have the outdoor recreation industry, which is deeply rooted in the mountains to the west. Although these industries are geographically disconnected, they really connect along the Front Range as a common corridor. We've programmed our site to mimic this connection along a common corridor, which is the central boulevard on our site. So looking at our site plan here, the building on the bottom right here will be our food concept, which we're calling Ignite. Our vision for the Ignite concept is to be a fully functional food ecosystem. It has an incubator component for small startups, along with prep and production space for established businesses. This building will also include a culinary education space, shared kitchen, and food storage. We've designed parking and storage for Denver's food trucks, which rely on these sorts of off-site kitchens to run their businesses. And finally, the former blacksmith shop will be converted into a food hall to provide a gathering space for GlobeYard's workers and visitors alike. And these are just a couple images of what the Ignite concept would really look like along that common boulevard. Now, looking at the remainder of the site, this will be devoted to the outdoor industry. Through adaptive reuse, the main atrium building will be converted into offices. Flex industrial space surrounds the atrium and can be used for manufacturing, distribution, storage, and testing of these products. A retail showroom space with highway visibility will be on the front end of our site to highlight some of the tenants' products. Our intention is to serve the outdoor industry companies with on-site amenities for each phase of the business, each function of the business. We've connected the site through common corridors that all lead to a central nucleus. This nucleus, back near the powerhouse building, is what we're calling the backyard. This is an area where the boulevard and paths meet, the two concepts come together, and this is where the public and professional aspects of this site overlap. Now Jordan will tell you a little bit about why we like these industries.
Thank you, Graham. The food industry is changing. With booming economies comes increased rents, and restaurants are changing their facilities to adapt. Delivery-only ghost kitchens and food trucks are rapidly emerging, taking considerable market share from traditional operators. Food trucks in Denver alone have tripled since 2014. These ventures need a base to support them. Food Biz Magazine rates Denver number 10 food entrepreneur city nationwide. Headwall Development examined other cities that were experiencing similar economic growth and demographics, noticing a common element that Denver lacked. Chicago, DC, Atlanta, Austin, LA, San Francisco all have large-scale food production operations built recently. We intend to bring a product that will be unique to Denver. Ignite will offer a full-service incubation and production facility under one roof. And now I'm going to tell you about another defining industry for Denver. Colorado's always been an outdoor destination. Whether we're skiing, climbing, or biking, recreation in Colorado is big. With the recent move of the Outdoor Retailers Convention and VF Corp headquarters, Denver has solidified its place as the outdoor retail capital. Nationally, the outdoor industry is huge, with greater economic output than pharmaceuticals and petroleum. The outdoor industry contributes $62 billion to the state's economy with 511,000 jobs since 2014. The sector is growing rapidly, with economic output growing by 81% and growth increasing by 63% since 2014. Most adventurers are bound to pass the intersection of I-25 and I-70 on their way to the mountains, making GlobeYard the perfect location to capture the demand for gear. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Graham, who's going to tell you a little more detail.
Thanks, Jordan. We found strong support for why each of these industries will benefit from the location of GlobeYard. This is a unique opportunity to create a facility of this scale that meets the changing industry dynamics that Jordan just highlighted. Food and outdoor companies alike will benefit from the proximity to downtown Denver and the greater metro region, the nearby logistical routes, and the growing population of Denver. In addition, we want to make sure that the site appeals to the public, with a variety of activities and attractions on site. Drawing visitors to GlobeYard will also help benefit our tenants. As we know, nothing brings people together more than food. And in Colorado, we believe that the outdoor recreation industry is probably a close second. Now over to Will.
So we told you a lot about how we think our project captures the market. Now we want to update you a little bit on what the actual feedback has been from the market. Through our pre-leasing activities, we're having real, actual conversations about leases with these companies on this list. The first company is a group called Axion, which is an international nonprofit company that specializes in financing and developing projects in underserved communities. We've been actively talking to them about being the master tenant and operator of the entire Ignite building, which is 150,000 square feet, which would be a 15-year lease at $18 a square foot. Everyone knows who WeWork is. They just recently became the largest office tenant in Denver. We've been having conversations with Jeff Bodeman, who's their director of real estate for this region. He loves the concept and submitted to us a letter of intent to lease 50,000 square feet of the Atrium building for 15 years at $25 a square foot. These next three companies we're also having conversations with, we feel really complement the entire vision we're trying to accomplish here. Everyone knows Vail Resorts. They're interested in doing a retail store here for 20,000 square feet. Denver Central Market's interested in occupying our entire food hall and doing something very similar to what they've done in Rhino. And Gotham Greens specializes in rooftop urban gardens, and they've expressed interest in 80,000 square feet of the rooftop of our Sonos building. These are real, live, actual deals that we have working right now. We're confident we can get them over the goal line, and if we do, they comprise roughly 35% of our entire GLA. So a little bit about our development plan and thoughts on phasing. We're dividing this up into 4 different phases, each of which build upon each other and really give us an opportunity to collect rents from some of the existing tenants throughout the construction process. Phase 1 is going to be kicked off by our anchor tenant, which is Axion Ignite. And so we'll start off by doing site work, finishing out their building, bringing it to a base condition, doing the same with the food hall building, and then building our boulevard right down the middle of the site, as you can see right here. Then phase 2 is where we incorporate WeWork and the outdoor industry. WeWork will occupy 50,000 square feet in the second level of this building, which has great views of the mountains. These buildings right here will be converted into light industrial and showroom space. We envision Vail Resorts to take 20,000 square feet right here because it's such a prominent position at the main entrance of the property, has great signage opportunities, and great visibility from I-25. And we'll complete that project by finishing the powerhouse building, the backyard, the activity center, and the track where you can test bikes. Now I'm going to take it over to Robbie for phase 3.
Thanks. So phase 3 is an important phase in this development because this is the phase in which we construct our corridors, really transforming this development into a campus-style project. In addition to that, we'll be retrofitting the southeastern building into Creative Flex and Makerspace. As you can see, this building connected here has all the loading, and we're going to be reverting that into a logistics center to handle all the shipping and receiving needs of all the tenants throughout the project. And then lastly, we're going to be constructing our greenhouse rooftop, as Will mentioned, that will be operated by Gotham Greens. So our fourth and final phase, we'll be renovating the southwestern building, throwing some TIs costs and some hard costs into this building to really bring it up to high quality industrial flex. With the added advantage of the corridor, allows for frontage for each of the tenants in this building, giving us as the landlords flexibility to demise the building how we see fit. And the final aspect of this project is we're going to be installing a large community garden, inviting the community into our development. So as you can see here, this top chart itemizes our total project costs, which equate to $137 million. We'll be funding this project with a combination of equity, debt, and alternative financing. The equity will be contributed by Headwall Development in the form of land contribution towards each phase. Alternative financing comes in the form of new market tax credits and enterprise zone tax credits, which will be used in phase 1 and 2. And the remainder will be financed through traditional debt, starting with a construction loan, then overtaken by a long-term permanent loan. All of our debt interest rate assumptions we've confirmed with industry professionals, including Ackman Ziff and citywide banks. This chart here helps you visualize our cash flows from the beginning of the project to stabilization, which we're forecasting in year 8. This is also the date that we will have a capital event. And as we mentioned, we're going to be phasing this thing strategically in order to take advantage of the existing rent roll. The existing rent rolls will slowly fizzle out and be overtaken by the new rent rolls provided by the improvements we've made to this property. We're predicting a stabilized net operating income of $13.3 million, which gives us a return on cost of 9.7 and a return on equity of 17.85. So finally, our exit strategy, we've identified 2 possible options for exit. We ran a sensitivity analysis based on market cap rates that we've figured out through discussions with capital market professionals in the industry. We've identified scenario 2 as our most likely scenario, a 7.5 cap. Scenario 1 as our worst case, and scenario 3 as our best case. As you can see here, with a 7.5 cap, we expect a reversion value of $182 million, which would render total profits of $57 million and an IRR of 20.39%. We do acknowledge, however, that because this is such a large asset and a high price point, our investor pool is relatively limited, even though there is a lot of institutional investors coming to Denver every year. But in order to account for this, we've identified a second option, which would be to refinance the whole project upon stabilization. Going by scenario 2 again, we think we can get a new loan amount of $127 million, which we'll use to pay off all existing debt, our loan costs, and our full original equity, leaving us with a reserve amount of $5.87 million. Let's turn over to Maggie.
Sorry. So as the rest of my team has articulated, GlobeYard not only meets but exceeds the objectives for the site. Through maintaining industrial zoning and use, as well as more than doubling employment opportunities on the site, GlobeYard respects both the city's and the neighborhood's visions for this sector of Globeville as articulated in the neighborhood plan. Also, through keeping and revitalizing every single building and industrial structure on site, GlobeYard honors both the look and spirit of the site's industrial past. Through integrating corridors, courtyards, and design through all 40 acres of the property, it's the epitome of a campus-style redevelopment. And through reusing all existing buildings, xeriscaping, utilizing solar power, as well as creating a place where the community can work, play, and grow, GlobeYard is not only a sustainable development, but it supports a sustainable Globeville. And finally, through reaching an IRR of more than 20%, all of this is not only possible at GlobeYard, it's profitable.
Thanks, Maggie. So to recap, Maggie walked us through the framework that led us to the GlobeYard. Graham's map showed you how the GlobeYard will integrate and connect the ag and food of the east with the outdoor industry of the west. Jordan hit on how thriving the outdoor industry is in Colorado, and also how that white map showed all these food commissaries and production spaces across the country, except for here in Denver. And of course, Robbie walked through the Atkins ZIF certified financials that show strong IRR and profit. And finally, of course, Will showed the overwhelmingly positive support that we receive from potential tenants with the likes of WeWork and Vail Resorts. It is for these reasons GlobeYard is not only the highest and best use of this year's subject property, it is the best development for Globeville, Denver, east to west, Colorado-wide. Thank you so much, and we're happy to take any questions you have.
Okay, good comment. I thought that was a great open and great close. Congratulations, that was well done. I have a follow-up question on the financing.
Yep.
You're staging this over 4 years for each phase.
Yep.
And you have a interest rate that's fixed at the beginning at 4.25%, is that correct?
That's our permanent loan interest, or sorry, it's 5.5 is our construction loan, 4.25 is the permanent loan.
Okay, so the 4.25 permanent loan,
Yeah.
but how are you fixing that rate today for delivery in 4 years? And is there a forward pricing premium in that number, or should there be?
It's a good question. Like I said, we spoke to a couple of different banks and just tried to get a general idea of what they kind of perceive as sort of the average interest rate for a permanent loan over the course of this project, and that's how we came up with the 4.25 number. I do not believe we added an inflation number. Again, I think that was sort of the average we expect over these 4 years.
But price today or price 4 years from now?
Sorry, what's that?
You're pricing that loan today or 4 years from now?
We're pricing it today at 4.25.
And Atkins helped us come up with that number.
Did you sensitize that, given the risk between now and 4 years from now for interest rates and what that would do to your returns if that rate increased by 2%?
Yeah, we did run some sensitivity on that rate. I think we initially actually had it modeled quite a bit higher before we had our conversations with Atkins ZIF. I think we had it at 4.75 or something, 4.75, and it's still it moves the needle a little bit, but it still pencils at that rate.
So can you talk us through the uses both in the retail standpoint and food hall? What is Vail Resorts doing in 1,000 square feet of showroom space, and how does this location meet their needs? Talk about food halls next.
Yeah, so Vail Resorts, they have retail stores all over the state, and so they see this as an opportunity to kind of have a combination of selling products. People can come in and get, their lift tickets, and really they wanted to be kind of a branding part of what they envision and re-envision moving forward as kind of an epicenter of the outdoor retail industry world here at this site. And so in talking to them about like how much space they would want, they told us that for something like this they would want close to 20,000 feet. They would obviously want one of the more prominent spaces that we have, which we think is, kind of at the main entrance at that corner. Is that answer your question?
And I think the specific concept they were mentioning was their Epic Mountain Sports division.
I think the only thing I'll add is while these are preliminary conversations, they have also expressed interest in maybe having a rental shop there as well. Just given you're right at that nexus of 70 and 25, so people can pop in there, get their gear, pop out, and then on the way back to the airport, pop in and drop it off. So they were open to that as well.
As well as some storage and potentially some distribution.
That's a follow-on from Have the tenants that you have allowed to actually driven and seen the accessibility of the site?
So Jeff Bodeman, who's the director of real estate for WeWork that we've been talking to, he was in town and he toured the entire market with his broker, I want to say the second week of March. And so before he took that tour, we got on the phone with him and walked him through exactly what our concept looks like, where it is, and what we're trying to create there. And he drove the market with his broker. And it wasn't until after that where he was like, this is something we consider, and he put together the proposal and submitted it to us, and that's what we based our assumptions on.
He was the only one.
Well, Axion is aware that this is a historically struggling area in some capacities, and their hatchery in Chicago, which much of the Ignite concept is based off of, that is in the western kind of more struggling part of Chicago as well, to offer some of those community members opportunities in terms of training, as well as lowering barriers to entry for food entrepreneurs in that community. So they actually are attracted to this type of location, especially given the fact that it's global.
What are those other commissaries paying in terms of rent in the various cities that you showed on the map? You know what those rent structures are?
We got our numbers directly from Axion based off of their Chicago hatchery model, which we think is pretty comparable.
What we did, so we had an at-length conversation with their director of leasing and development, and we walked them through exactly kind of what spaces we wanted to provide for them in this building, and it's really comparable with what they have in Chicago. And we told him kind of like what we thought was market for each of those spaces if we were going to be the ones kind of taking this to the market. And he kind of confirmed through their business plan that the revenue they would forecast to generate out of a site like this here would support the numbers that we were proposing. More specific.
In terms of them, where I'm going with this is, in terms of what you're delivering in the space, are you paying for all the, how much of the, what I would call the FF&E, are you paying for within your rent structure? How much are they bringing to the table?
So the way we plan on structuring with him is sure, no, absolutely. And he walked us through exactly what it costs to build a building in Chicago. And that was a ground up new development. And so we kind of told him like what condition we're getting these buildings in, what our budget is to bring them to a base building condition. And then the structure we have planned with them is they're a true master tenant. And so we negotiated as like, well, we could contribute this much in tenant improvement allowance, which I believe we've underwritten at $75 a foot, which is a little more than $11 million. And we're already in our hard cost budgeting almost another $11 million just to bring the building into a condition that they would accept it in. But to your point, their private kitchens, we're planning on having almost 60 private kitchens, and it's very expensive. But in our conversations with him, you know, this is what we're planning on delivering, this is how much we're planning on contributing, and obviously we underwrote like their credit, which is international nonprofit credit. I think they have like $500 million in assets, and they communicated to us that that was a deal that set them up to succeed.
Again, to recap, I mean, we're throwing $22 million at the building, and we've accounted for the infrastructure costs that it takes to support these kitchens with the hoods and the grease traps and all that. We've spoken to general contractors, and they've given us quotes for those numbers.
What I'm hearing is a destination retail food court and great visibility. But your first statement was what I saw was that it's a great place, you can see it, but you can't get there from here. So I'm not sure how you connect to Globeville, because it's supposed to be an extension of Globeville, but how do you get there from Globeville? And how do you get here as a destination? And it's a little missing.
So the site has great vehicular access, great visibility, and really that's going to be the core of people arriving to the site. The general challenge always around Denver is the last mile solution. Being so close to the new Fox Island train station that's just opened up right across I-70, we believe that with new modes of transportation, scooters, autonomous cars, and the contribution of Fox Island as a community, RTD will consider adapting their bus routes and possibly putting a new bus stop in front of our site. But it's really a last mile solution. The train station is close enough that someone could take a scooter or a bicycle to access our site.
And just how would you get from that? So let's start there. Yeah, how would you physically get on a scooter or in a vehicle from that train station to this site?
You're able to navigate through 45th Street and then underneath I-70, I believe the street.
We'll go on to Bannock from there, and it's 1.5 miles to the nearest bus route via road.
But there is streets with defined sidewalks that go under I-70 currently.
So, food hall concepts are certainly popular today. There's no shortage of competition within the city for a number of different food hall concepts. Why do you believe this food hall concept will succeed, given your accessibility challenges here?
I think there's two things. First, it's the authentically local component. These are local Denver entrepreneurs from the community that are starting their business here in Globeville and then producing and selling their business on site. Everyone is drawn to locally produced greens products, and with the component of Gotham Greens, having that greens, the base product come in to the incubator and then be produced and sold at the Blacksmith Food Hall, I think is a combination people will be drawn to. And additionally, with this massive development going on in Fox Island, there's going to be an immense consumer base directly across the road that needs somewhere to go eat.
And if I could add on to that, currently Globeville is kind of a food desert. There's really nothing around in terms of food. You have to go on the highway to get closer to Denver. In the area, the northwest quadrant that we're in, there's a huge amount of business and industrial, real estate in that area. So we kind of see our food hall as not only self-sufficient in containing the full property itself, but also the surrounding businesses can come and stop there for their lunch breaks.
And
Additionally, we'll employ 2,000 jobs on the site. So once we reach stability, that component, those will be more visitors to the food hall.
And we had a conversation with Albus Brooks, City Councilman, who said the number one need in Globeville right now is food.
But are those residents buying food at your food hall?
We think they will. When Fox Island is built, and this is a transit-oriented development, it's not the traditional demographic that lives in Globeville now that's going to move into Fox Island. We think those people will want somewhere to dine, in addition to all the workers that work in Globeville and on our property.
And that's a good question, Christian, because I think also within the residents of Globeville, we're also going to have this community garden component. As you can see, this is our map. It's in the appendix of the food desert that is Globeville, basically. And so they're going to have about an acre for them, and we're going to, the nonprofit Axiom is going to help operate this to help them grow local produce, kind of provide classes to educate them on nutrition, and kind of make this, as Albert Brooks said, a self-sustaining community in itself.
I appreciate the goals of the Globeville plan in that respect, but I think part of the challenge there is how do those residents get to the site if they don't have a vehicle? And getting over there is quite challenging. How do they get there?
I mean, I think, again, given the fact that bus stops in Denver are fluid, and when you have a development like this get off the ground, in the conversations we've had, you can lobby enough to get RTD to shift a bus stop to there. I mean, it was this morning, I think, that I saw a bus stop was closed down and another one opened up down the street, so they do move around.
Yeah, look at the cash flow for a second.
Sure.
Under that.
That's the end.
This is the expanded cash flow,
That's expanded.
showing income coming in, how much each use.
So your NOI is continuing to ramp up. Where do you stabilize this in your life?
Stabilizing your rate.
So you're picking up what, call it, a little less than 500 apartments, 500,000 in the last year or two. One of these, you guys look at selling it a year earlier and what that does to your returns.
We did, one of the big constraints we have is as we're leveraging new market tax credits, they are paid back over 7 years, so we can't really look to do anything prior to that.
So we can't sell it now.
Did you look at subdividing the site so you could sell on individual parcels, given that it's a large project and the investor base can be shallower on a wholesale basis?
Yeah, we did. And we struggled with that a little bit because we did want to make this sort of a all-inclusive campus style development, and we thought if we sold off individual parcels off to, it would cloud sort of the developer vision of this site. So we went against that.
So building on that, so how do you think about cap rate for this? As you build that out, like, how do you adjust that over time? You're looking at cap rate 8 years out.
Yeah. So to your point, I mean, no one has a crystal ball. It's hard to really forecast what a cap rate's going to be for any project 7 to 8 years out. The first thing we did was we looked at where cap rates are today, which are obviously historically low across each product type. We understand that doesn't directly apply to what we're dealing with here because this is totally unique and it's huge and it's different. We met with some people at CB, including Jeremy Ballinger. We met with people at JLL. We met with Tributary Real Estate, all of which are either active in pursuing investment in this submarket or can speak intelligently about the capital markets in general. we asked for each of them to kind of give us a range on what they thought was fair. And then we kind of coupled that with our own thoughts and market intel, and we came up with this range. And then we kind of put that back to them and said, what do you guys think? And it was kind of got their blessing. On top of that, I would say that the tenant mix that we envision here is a mix of national credit and local credit tenants. As I mentioned, Axiom, the company, we envision that as an extremely creditworthy master lease that would be attractive from an institutional investor based on their track record of their success in 50 different countries across. Do they have investment grade?
I mean, are they investment grade in terms of credit or not?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So if you start to, so you're saying that going, today's cap rate for this is 7.5, you're adjusting that over time?
We're adjusting that over time. So we think that this is where our projection is for when we want to take it to the market.
Well, if you had it today, what do you think it would be in the current strong market?
If we had it today, I mean,
It's hard to tell because we do have office, it's really unique.
Well, that's another question, right? You have different types of.
Yeah.
So we're trying to blend it.
it's hard to answer that because, like where I was going with our mix of tenants is we envision this as a mix of national outdoor retail companies along with solid local operators. And so, for example, we know that BF Corp is in the market looking for 50,000 square feet of research and design space. I mean, if we can accommodate them, what does that do to our cap rate? That's huge. If we actually had conversations with the VP of retail at North Face, and they'd be interested for 2,000 square feet of a rental space here. So it's hard to really answer that question without knowing, who the tenants are going to be. But we think over time, with our pre-leasing success we've already had, we'll have a much better picture of, the credit. What an investor is really how they're going to assess their risk and evaluating what our rent roll looks like.
And then it's probably interesting to look at what's your occupancy
What's our occupancy assumption?
in year 8?
In year 8, I think we underwrote a 7% vacancy rate.
vacancy kind of across the board.
Yeah, and I mean, our timetable on our lease up is incredibly conservative as it relates to the rest of the market. I think that at the end of year 1, we're kind of like 60% leased across the board in each phase. And that really doesn't factor in our pre-leasing that we already have today. And again, that's really conservative based on how long space is actually staying on the market when it becomes available in this submarket, and just the overall interest from tenants like this. So we think that we've been incredibly conservative in our absorption and our lease up.
Do you have that summary up there that shows you with different spaces? I mean, what's the food court, what's your office? I mean, what's in your square footage? I don't know what you have.
Right there.
Summary of that. Right. So there you got industrial, 275, office of 210, 40,000 retail, 100. So what's the hardest one to crack?
Which is the hardest space to lease.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I think that, having, if we get our deal done with Vail Resorts like we really intend to, I mean, in the retail world, it's kind of like activity begets activity. You have a tenant like Vail Resorts along with the food concept that's already kind of up and running. I think that makes it a lot easier to attract other retailers. And that's the most visible space in the project. I think if the most difficult space would probably be the last phase, since it's kind of, if you're on I-25, we're kind of like back left corner here, just from where it is on site. But at the same time, we really envision that as like creative flex space for these outdoor retailers to really give them a place to. I think the example that we wanted to convey was like if you're a ski company, this is a place where you literally can build your skis, have someone test products. You have office space for your employees. You have a place to display them. We've got a fulfillment center we can go out and ship them. And so I think that given the full service nature of our entire campus really mitigates a lot of the risk in lease up. And again, we think that we're going to be pre-leased substantially. And so that activity is just going to generate so much buzz. We don't think it's going to be that hard.
How about I missed it? Did you do a parking calculation? Because you're bringing a lot of people.
We did. I think off the top of my head, I think we have 850 parking spaces. And we had our architects do a parking study, and we're vastly overparked for the uses, for what uses required per code.
So I was impressed with the list of outdoor retailers you talked to. I know Dino I can tell you talk to executive folks. I am curious though, because the outdoor industry really seems anchored in Boulder and anchored in wanting to be in those locations that have direct access to the mountains and the activities. Did any of them talk about the challenges of pulling them out of Boulder?
I think it goes back to what Will was alluding to. Like, this is a full-service center for all these outdoor companies. I mean, they can prototype their products here, they can manufacture them there, they can inventory them there, and then of course they can sell them to consumers there. And consumers sometimes, given the activity, as you're selling a mountain bike, can actually try them out at the place as well. So I think given that that's that one-stop shop, full-service experience for these types of companies, not to mention Denver's growth and population and being kind of a population center, they've shown a lot of interest in this. And again, there's nothing really like this in Denver.
And this site really has better visibility for any tourist or anyone driving to the mountains from the airport, from the city, who's going to pass this site and take a look, and we think that's appealing to those retailers.
And a lot of these groups already want to be downtown. It's close to like the convention center and Union Station and stuff as possible, but they just can't pay the freight, they can't afford it. And so this is an opportunity for them to be 3 miles from downtown, right at I-25 and I-70. And so specifically with the North Face, they kind of validated that there would be substantial interest in the opportunity to be this close to downtown Denver, also have the access to the interstates, but not have to pay, nearly what it would cost them to be in some of those more expensive submarkets.
Yeah, I agree. I think another important point is that because we are just outside of downtown Denver, the rental rates are going to be much less than Boulder in downtown Denver. So that also kind of gives us the competitive advantage.
And just to add, looking at some of the companies you're probably talking about in Boulder, I know the Colorado Tech Center up there in Louisville has a number of the big outdoor retailers that we looked at. As big as, I believe, the Phoenix Corp that does Fall Raven. They moved in with something like 40,000 square feet up there. And those rents are very comparable to what we're looking at here. Even though it's just outside of Boulder, we think what we add is that collaborative kind of campus setting that we're finding in the industry a lot of those companies are really attracted to. They want to be near each other and they want to share a lot of their ideas in space. And so we're hoping, as companies move to Colorado and want to be in Denver, we will have space available for them and it'll have everything they need.
So, please credit you guys. Again, I think the releasing discussions that you've had is leaps and bounds to validation of your strategy and plan. Everybody can try to shoot goals for things, but when we've had a conversation, that goes a very long ways. That being said, an LOI is not done until it's inked. Let's just take a couple of scenarios here. If WeWork doesn't come through, or if Night doesn't come through, how would you reposition your overall development strategy?
So I guess starting with Axion or for the Ignite building, as Jordan really showed in his market presentation, we really do believe that there's a market for this concept here in Denver. And so for some reason, and we've had really extensive conversations with them, like about their business plan and about Denver and about the viability of this project. But if that went to the wayside, we would go try to recruit one of the other similar concepts that we displayed on a map.
Denver Prep.
Yeah, Denver Prep. Specifically, one is Atlanta Prep, and they're doing a deal in Texas. They're doing a deal in Nashville, and they're kind of like going all over across the country. So to answer your question, our first strategy there would be to find a similar concept that fits that building. Second part of your question?
Was WeWork.
WeWork.
Didn't come through.
Yeah, we still think there is a really great opportunity to turn that atrium building into really, really cool creative office space, given there's 50-foot ceiling heights and its views of the mountains. And again, this full service kind of concept that we're offering the tenants, we think there's still demand there for office
Have you
space.
spoken to office tenant brokers about this as an office site?
We have.
What was their response?
Their response was, we're glad that you're a discount from Rhino. No, we talked to the Cushman guys who were marketing like the Rock Drill site, and based on their activity, which they communicated to us was really good, and they're achieving low to mid 30s in rents. We think there's a real opportunity to achieve low to mid 20s in rents. And if you look at kind of like how little office product there is around us in the area, and if you've got people coming in from the north, it's kind of like you can have a space that's cool on a campus and not have to go all the way downtown, and you're kind of like right there. And we kind of had that scenario discussion with other brokers, and they seemed to think that there was
Yeah,
some interest there.
I think it's the essential point to think about is we're creating a destination in a sense of, if we just threw up an office building right in that location, it probably wouldn't succeed. But because we're creating a destination campus where people can collaborate and there's like-minded individuals all working together, it boosts the popularity of the site.
So one other question, you've got a lot of cold storage on the site already. How did you evaluate the utilization of that, preservation of it?
Really, in our Ignite concept is where we reuse the cold storage. The refrigeration units are definitely expensive, and part of the Ignite concept is offering a space for food trucks, for food entrepreneurs to store their goods on a micro basis and be able to rent it out to people on a smaller scale than a large scale cold storage facility. We've been told through brokers that there's a lack of cold storage availability in Denver right now. It's all pretty much leased up. So we would retain some of that cold storage in our Ignite facility.
I think we also just took in mind what the sponsor said about maintaining the existing structures, given their historical value, given the nature of them, and also being sustainable development. So we just wanted to maximize the reuse of them, and as George just said, we would maximize some of that cold storage as well.
Alice Brooks, he's in the district of local, it's like the poster child for gentrification. How is this proposal responding to that?
Sure, yeah. Well, both within the atrium concept and in the Ignite building, it's really important to incorporate the low-income community and small business development, as well as to brush shoulders with the larger community in the collaborative workspace. And we think that it is a site that will draw the community in, particularly to the gardens in the south. That's 70,000 square feet of free garden space, and hopefully employ a lot of the local residents. So another component of Ignite is within the lease agreement with Axion, there will be a first source hiring component for local low-income residents that will address that as well.
I think really the residents of Globeville, most of them, they're unskilled labor, and Ignite really provides an opportunity for them to take their ethnic traditions and turn it into a product. Food and beverage is one of the lower barrier to entry industries, and this concept gives them the basic skills to be beyond just that unskilled labor, to be 1 or 2 steps above that and be able to prosper in the Denver food economy.
I'm worried a little bit about the rents. I hear rumors like a rent at Stanley Marketplace is 14. I think I saw numbers somewhere in the 20 range. So I'm wondering how accessible that is to small.
Part of Axion's concept is to, for low-income Globeville residents, a portion of the leases will be lessened leases, maybe 10%. We would negotiate that in the lease agreement. There would also be monthly free business development classes for any local low-income entrepreneurs.
And that's how they do it at the Hatchery in Chicago.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We really gravitated towards the hatchery versus some of these others, because they really do care about the community, investing in the community, enabling entrepreneurship and building skills. So that's why, given the global dynamic, we thought it was a right fit.
They are the largest nonprofit lender in the United States. And they place a huge priority on partnering with the cities that they enter into.
Yeah.
They discuss that with us exhaustively.
Yeah, they're a global company
Yeah.
actually, and they're predominantly focused on the food service industry.
And this is a highly distressed census tract, and they're drawn to that specific metric as a community to enter.
Is this by any chance an opportunity zone?
It's not.
No,
But it is in a state enterprise zone.
So there are incentives for new business tenants as well as for us in rehabilitating vacant buildings.
And one of the enterprise zone credits are agriculture producers, which is what drew Gotham Greens to want a greenhouse on it. There's significant economic incentives for them, and others just creating businesses on the site.
Can you tell us about the BNSF easement and the impacts that had on your design plans?
The BNSF easement is primarily in the southwest portion. It did not impact our designs in that in the future we'll incorporate it into our leases. We'll make sure that it's known that they will have to cede any power that BNSF requests. I think it's 70 feet from the rail, and then any of the communications and power systems, we'll just have to, into the future, allow that.
So that's one thing I think you could add in here a little bit more, it's just
Yep.
most nations and funds.
Absolutely.
So, just, there's a river running around Home Depot is actually gonna end up taking Fox Island. What is that future plan?
Well, the Home Depot development specifically, as I've read about it actually today, they intend to do 4 to 5 stories of apartments on top of the Home Depot, being the most urban Home Depot in the country. And those are consumers for our products. Those are our employees to work at the site and residents to use a community garden.
Can you expand on the sustainability other than you're gonna keep all the buildings that you have? Is there anything else you thought about? That was one of the part of it.
Yeah, we think from a community standpoint, this is a very sustainable development, given the community garden concept. We also are adding I actually have a slide on this, but jump to that. We're going to be using endemic plants to Colorado that are not thirsty and will require minimal water. And then also, we will be using LED lights for the new build, and then working with tenants to see if they can use Energy Star appliances, things like that.
Do you think about big solar arrays on the roofs?
There's a 340 kW AC kilowatt array on the roof, and while we are making those corridors out of it, we're still going to maintain that array and continue it. We've considered array for other parts of the roof, but given the greenhouse and those components, we thought we'd stick for now with the solar array. I think if we move forward, we take a hard look at that.
Did you look at base financing at all?
We did look at PACE, and I'm a big fan of PACE personally. But to do PACE, in our opinion, after talking to Group 14, after talking to Lever Capital, the largest PACE provider, probably Western Mississippi, we realized we needed a full rigorous energy model to enable that you aren't trading rent for a lower utility bill, because obviously the tenant pays for that higher property tax. And so if that utility bill doesn't go down enough and that property tax goes up enough, you're going to have basically trading lower bills for higher rents. And we didn't want to move that forward and thought it would be prudent to just keep it as is. But if we were to move forward with this, we would work with Group 14, we would work with Lever Capital to look up and take a hard look at PACE.
So I know you mentioned when you talked to citywide banks, is this a loan that we would be willing to look at doing this house?
Yeah, I talked to citywide banks about our new market tax credits and the interest rate associated with that, which is just a 1% interest through the length of the 7 years. They also confirmed that my construction loan and my permanent loan numbers were correct.
Would they be your construction lender?
Them or Ackman Ziff. We also have extensive conversations with Ackman Ziff. They're super active in the Denver market, providing loans, and they said they'd consider this project for sure.
So they would charge the council a little bit, it'd be quite a large one citywide.
We would obviously see terms from multiple groups and test, see what the market is, and make a decision from there.
Well, this is a real place I would love to be. My only concern is its site accessibility and the 1 mile demographics around it. And I know if you could put this in Rhino, or on the other side by 7, it would feel a little easier, but it's a place I want to go.
There's a chance that 8 or 10 years ago, someone would have said that about Rhino as well. And so we believe in kind of that first mover mentality, and with a site this big, this can do it. This can be that thing that kind of redefines what this neighborhood's all about. And it'll bring in a new crowd of people, run them through this neighborhood and put new eyes on it, and maybe help reinvigorate in other ways. So we're hopeful in that sense.
So I would echo the concerns about accessibility and tenant performance, like that for central market, this location, between accessibility, and what you guys have done is, again, identify good target tenants that you've spoken with. So I'd put that forefront, I'd put the this obviously great, but anybody else from that kind of manufacturing side, North Face or VF Corp or anybody else that that you've had conversations about or may have conversations about, bringing that at the forefront as a placemaker, say that's the anchor that's going to draw here, that bring that a little more forefront as well.
Great job.